Good morning, neighbors. Today we need to talk about something that I've touched upon multiple times throughout the vlog, but I think it's time that I fully explain my love, borderline obsession with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I want to take that and kind of talk about down the line where I see us in 2019. Erica's starting to apply to jobs outside of Pittsburgh. There's not a lot of opportunities for her here, which means that there's a very high chance we'll be moving to a new city, possibly a new state, towards the end of 2019. And I just want to share why Steelers Sunday, why the Steelers, why the team, why the city is so important to me. So let's back up. I am not originally from Western PA. My family, my mom and dad met on the West Coast out in California, in San Bernardino, California, which is near Los Angeles, which is actually where my mom is from. I grew up there for a bit. We lived out there until I was about 5, going on 6. We moved out to Western PA. My dad was originally from Western PA, and they decided to move back here, and that was a big decision for them. Moving out here, I was still in kindergarten. I was like halfway through kindergarten, and I remember being the California kid. I was the outsider. For me, my identity, I guess, was the kid who moved here. I was the California kid. I was integrating myself in. I was not part of my class, my Western PA class. They had their own weird quirks and stuff. They wore t-shirts and shorts when it was 50 degrees and I was still bundled up because it was freezing cold. I held on to my California roots. Even as like a 5, 6, 7-year-old, I wanted to be that kid from somewhere else. And what happened was slowly I began integrating in, slowly as Western PA, as Greensburg, Pennsylvania became my home. I started to take on more and more of that, of the traditions and customs, namely watching football. Football is such a big thing out here in Western PA. I wasn't really interested in sports. I said I was a Rams fan because at the time and now the Rams were still in Los Angeles. So I said I was a Rams fan. I wasn't really a Rams fan, but that was my team. I slowly started to get more and more interested in sports, and around 2001, I think, 2001 was the first season I really started paying attention and watching the Steelers and getting really into it. Watching the Steelers with my mom, with my dad, with my sister, it became like it was a family thing. It was a very intentional thing. Every Sunday was church and then Steelers. We sit down, we had some kind of meal, some kind of like tailgate, during the game, and we watched the game. We sat and watched the game. We enjoyed it together, and it became such a big part of growing up. So after all that time, being out on my own, being in college, like watching the game, like that was, it's so nostalgic for me. It just reminds me of time, simpler times. The Steelers were like everything. They were part of my identity. They were part of being a Pittsburgher, and that's definitely carried through as an adult. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I don't know where we're gonna be come September, October of next year. I don't know if we'll still be in Pennsylvania, and that really scares me because, looking back as a 5-year-old, I held on to that California identity for a short amount of time, but I was just a kid. I was very malleable, right? Now, Pittsburgh is such a part of me and my identity that moving to a new city, I feel like Pittsburgh will always be home. Pittsburgh will always be home. And wherever we end up, it's just gonna be where we're at. And it's not gonna be like our home, if that makes sense. And I know watching the Steelers, whether that's in Maine or Wisconsin or Ohio or wherever we end up, I know that even more so watching the Steelers will be a connection to my family, to my friends here in Western PA and Pittsburgh. I know it's gonna mean a lot. That's why the season's been so important, and I really want us to make the playoffs, is because it feels like my last season as a Steelers fan in Pittsburgh. And so it means a lot, but I don't know. We'll have to see what happens later today. But neighbors, I'm curious, how has where you lived shaped you and your identity? Do you still hold on to customs, traditions, sporting teams from where you originally grew up, and maybe you're living somewhere now? What is it about where you live that has shaped you? I'm very curious, because as you can see, Pittsburgh is very much part of me. So neighbors, don't forget, adventure always. We'll see you again tomorrow for the start of our final 100 daily vlogs, and it's New Year's Eve, so that'll be fun. Don't forget, adventure always. We'll see you then. Bye.
so funny.